Minasan konnichiwa and welcome to the Board Game Dojo's 2023 Holiday Gift Guide, where we're going to give you over 50 unique games, some from Asia, some not, so that you can succeed this holiday season. In order to make this gift guide the most helpful to you, we initiated 2 rules for the games we chose. 1, it has to be available, and if they're imported games, they have to be available and be able to get to you by the time the holidays roll around. The second rule is that it can't be an exorbitant price to acquire. For example, we don't want to give you a $20 game, as our list is today, but then the import fee is $60. That kind of just defeats the point. Luckily, compared to last year, those rules are a lot easier to follow this year, as many stores either got an imported game section or expanded an already present imported game selection. Just to name a few, I know in the US you have Tricky Imports and CloudCap Games, and in the UK and Europe you have travelgames.co.uk, who happen to be our sponsor for this video series. Not only do Travel Games have a nice selection of travel games that makes nice stocking stuffers, as the name implies, but partially because they're a co-host of the Board Game Dojo podcast and I work for them as a translator, they have a great selection of positively reviewed games from our channel, but they just have a really nice selection of hard-to-acquire imported games as well. Now, they didn't get to select any of the games on this list, but if any of the games that we have on our list happen to be in stock there, we'll put the links to those in the show description. Don't worry, we don't make any money for you clicking on those links. It's just helpful, we thought. So with that out of the way, let's get to today's video, which is 10 games under $25. Now for each of these categories, we are going to pick an imported selection and a non-imported selection. And let's begin with 2-player games. Our import recommendation is Let's Make a Bus Route, the dice game. Let's Make a Bus Route, the dice game is the 2-player roll and write version of its bigger sibling, Let's Make a Bus Route, which you might know from its yellow published name, Get On Board. Both games have you working as a bus driver, trying to make the best routes and drop passengers off where they want to go. The tourists want to go to the tourist destinations, the students want to get to the university, and so on. The roll and write version has you making difficult decisions of which way to expand your route, not trying to cross back on yourselves, but also maybe, just maybe, using those dice to get some bonuses to help you out on a future turn. Not only do we like the decision space of this game, but with an amazing production that has a dice tray built into the lid of the box, and at half the price of its bigger sibling, we actually much prefer the dice game version of Let's Make a Bus Route at 2 players. And that is why it is our import recommendation at 2 players. Our non-import recommendation at 2 players is Mandala. Mandalas are in spirituality a meditative thing, but this game is, well, it's a pleasantly stressful thing that has you trying to score different colors as you put them out onto different mandalas. The later on in the game you score the first of that color, the more points each one of those colors becomes. Now, you're going to be playing these different colored cards that you have in your hand to one of the 2 mandalas. Not only is the timing a consideration, but the location of your cards is important in deciding whether or not you're going to score more points. If you put it in the shared region of the mandala, both players are going to get to pick the color cards from that area once that mandala is full, which means that you might lose the color that you wanted to score. But on the other hand, you get to draw more cards into your hand that will later become points. However, you can also try to block your opponent by putting it in your kind of selfish private area of your mandala, and this will block your opponent from scoring those points that they desperately need, but at the same time you don't get to draw as many cards from the draw pile, and that's going to be less points for you. These little agonizing decisions, all in a package that takes about 10 to 15 minutes to play, is why it was one of our top 10 2-player games of all times, and we highly recommend it. Moving on from our 2-player recommendations, let's go to the family games. And our imported recommendation is Yoda Yoda Penguin. Yoda Yoda Penguin is an adorable combination of Jenga, Uno, and penguin meeples. You'll be building up a tower made up of flimsy cards, icebergs, and those cute penguin meeples that I just mentioned. And on those flimsy cards will be things that you might recognize from Uno, like making the next player draw 2 or skipping the next player's turn. But they have other actions on them as well, like putting a penguin onto the tower or putting icebergs onto the tower. Your goal is to get rid of all of your cards first, But the other way to win is when that tower inevitably falls over, then you want to be the player with the least amount of cards left in your hand. We've had luck with this game of kids with all ages, even 30-year-old kids. We think it's partially because it's a combination of games that people already know how to play, like Uno and Jenga, but it also comes together in a well-produced package and at an affordable price point. There's a reason that this was actually the first video we ever did at the Board Game Dojo, and even now we are still recommending it to people as a great holiday gift. Now, our non-import recommendation is a bit more of a divisive one, and that is Challengers. Like our Yoda Yoda Penguin recommendation, Challengers brings in a rule set of a game that people probably already know. War. Not the fighty-fighty war game, but the game in which two players flip over a card from the top of their stack, and whoever has the highest value wins. In Challengers, you're going to be making up a deck of cards that might have different values and different effects, like the cat or the gangster. And you will be playing a game of Capture the Flag, tournament style, on different boards. You'll both get to add cards to your decks, and then you'll go up against each other, and whoever has the value takes the flag. The next person will keep flipping over cards from the top of the deck until they can beat that card and take the flag back. But whoever runs out of their deck first, whoever has the flag wins. It's a simple, quick game that is very luck-filled, and I think that's why some people just don't like the game. But for us, we really like our family games to be something that brings in a rule set that some people already know. Oh, you already know this game, so I can be very quick in the rules explanation for this game. And its lightness and its silliness make it a good family game recommendation this holiday season. Next, let's go to our party game recommendations, and any fan of our channel probably can guess what our party game import recommendation is going to be. Ito, a game that mixes together the mind and wavelength, and we've been so excited to hear that other content creators have been getting and enjoying lately. Ito is a game in which each player will be secretly given a card between 1 and 100 that only they know the value of. You will then choose a category as a team, something like most popular toy, and then you will take a look at your card. The higher the value of your card, then the more popular in this category example, and the lower value card would be less popular. You will then give a hint to the rest of your group. This is a cooperative game, so that people know where your card is, especially in relation to their card. So if you have something like a 99, you might say Barbie. And if you have something like a 2, you might say the French guillotine. You will then work as a team to put everybody's cards down on the table in order from lowest to highest. Once you think you have it finalized, you will then reveal, and if you're right, you win. If you lose a life. There are now a few different versions of Ito with some different art or some different rule sets, but basically that's the standard rule set for Ito. There's hardly been a game in the past couple years in which we've had more laughs and lively conversation afterwards than Ito. There's a reason that content creators were so excited to get their hands on Ito, especially with the English version coming out at Essen. But I think for this holiday season, the one you're most likely going to be able to get your hands on is the Japanese version. But please don't worry about it. The text is so large and so easy to read that Google Translate has no problem when you hold the camera up over it and translating it. And because they're not that hard of prompts, it won't get lost in translation. For a game that we've played so many times at such a low price point, we can't recommend Ito enough. Moving on to our non-import selection, this is again a divisive one, but we do find that the holiday season is a great opportunity to buy people games that they might have been scared to buy themselves, because while some people absolutely love the game, some people really stay away from it, and this one is really important to know your group. But our non-import recommendation is the game Stay Cool. Stay Cool is a stress-filled, chaotic fest of a party game in which one player will have to simultaneously answer trivia questions, spell stuff out on a table with dice, and watch a timer, because if the timer runs out, then they have to stop. So they're watching that timer and be like, okay, flip over the timer. Okay, I'm also going to spell this thing out, and what somebody is telling me something else over here. There's a lot going on. But the thing that we like about this game is that it is fun no matter where you are in relation to the person doing it. Whether you're the person actually playing the game at the moment that is doing all this chaotic stuff, whether you're the person reading the questions, whether you're the person in charge making sure the timer doesn't go all the way down, or actually just standing back and watching. And that is one of the reasons that we do tend to like to bring this game to holiday parties, because if people want to play, if people want to try it out and see how they do, see if they can beat their friend's high score, then go for it. But if you just want to kind of stand back and laugh at people and see how stressful they are, also a good time. Stay Cool for us is just at the perfect price point where I think you can give it a try, see if it's for you, and if it's not, then it wasn't too expensive to begin with. But also, it just creates an atmosphere that we haven't seen anywhere else and is absolutely worth a recommendation. Next, let's move on to the casual game category, and our import recommendation is Gang of Dice. Gang of Dice is a push your luck dice game in which each round has a category, something that might say more than a sum of 10, and you don't want to hit that. You can roll as many dice as you want, and in some rounds you're allowed to re-roll, and some rounds you aren't, as long as you don't meet that condition. Because if you meet that condition, then you are eliminated from that round. The person who rolled the highest value without meeting the condition wins everybody's dice around the table. But the thing that makes this oh so agonizing and wants to get you to try to push your luck a little bit is two things. The first thing is that if people rolled the same value of the dice, whoever rolled the most amount of dice wins. The other thing is that if the people rolled the same value and the same amount of dice, then the person that went earlier wins. Which means that if you think that, okay, they rolled a 9 with 3 dice, am I gonna try to roll 9 with 4 dice? Can I really do that? You might just have to, especially once it gets towards the end of the game, in which you also win bonus dice that could completely change the game around. It is a really simple, fun, push your luck game that we've had luck with for people of all ages. A theme for games that we've put on this holiday gift guide. Our non-import recommendation for casual game is the follow-up to Point Salad called Point City. Now, it's really hard not to compare those two games, but Point City is basically if Point Salad and Splendor had a baby. Point Salad being a game in which you can take ingredients from the board and also select point scoring cards that allow you to score those ingredients in certain ways that other people cannot. Point City takes that formula, but then adds an engine building formula to it. You're going to be taking resources from a similar looking grid as in Point Salad, but there will also be buildings in which you need to use some of those ingredients or resources to build. Buildings will be worth things like points, but they can also be used as resources to be used in future turns that don't run out. So maybe I grab building A, and building A is an orange resource. So now I permanently have one orange resource in my tableau that I can use to purchase other stuff. Point Salad is definitely the more casual, I want to get people into gaming that have never played board games before type of game. But if you at all have people that have played board games before, even if it's something like a Scrabble or Monopoly, and are kind of wanting to get them into what the modern board gaming scene is, I actually think Point City is the better game. But I don't think you can go wrong with either one. We were really pleasantly surprised the first time we played Point Salad, and I was even more pleasantly surprised the first time that we played Point City, as it took that easy-to-learn, straightforward rule set from Point Salad and evolved it into a game that I can bring to board game night with not only my family, but with my board gaming buddies, as well as a nice warm-up or cool-down game. And that is why we recommend Point City. Finally, the last category of the day. I don't really know what category to really name it. Is it a strategy? Is it more main entree style of game? But I don't know. I'll probably figure it out as we go through the series. But we have two of them, and they actually both end up being card games. Our import recommendation is Sashi and Sashi's Wind the Film, which you might actually see in your board game shop as Photograph. This is a hand management game in which, before really Scout burst onto the scene, was probably my favorite example of a game in which you cannot reorganize your hand. With the theme of taking a picture on an old-timey camera, you'll be taking cards from the table in which you can kind of glean a little bit of information from the backs of the cards, putting them somewhere into your hand. Now you can do a little bit of sliding of the cards, just a little bit, but really what you want to be doing is playing sets of cards that are no more than 3 value apart. Getting this down into a 30-second blurb is really difficult to do, and probably doesn't do it justice, so I do recommend, probably more than any other game we're going to recommend today, going and watching a review video from another content creator. There's a bunch of them out there now that there's an easily accessible version and Photograph, and seeing if this game is for you. It's a little bit more brain-burny than you would expect it, and probably one of, if not the heaviest Sashi and Sashi games that have come out so far. But if you're looking for a lot of game in a tiny package, a game that comes at a low price point but will have a lot of plays with it, then I would look no further than Wind the Film. And speaking of game that offers a lot of games in a tiny package, let's go to our final game of the day, the non-import recommendation for our main entree game, Innovation. Innovation is my most played game of 2023, and with good reason. This game is a civilization-themed game in which you'll be working towards the ages, trying to get 6 achievements before your opponent does. These achievements can be done by doing certain actions, or having certain conditions on your turn, or having a certain amount of points on your turn. But really the attraction to this game are the cards themselves, and the actions and powers that they have. Because on your first couple plays, you'll see some cards and be like, how is that even fair? That seems to break the game entirely. And then you'll spend the next couple games trying to figure out how to counter that. And then you'll find other cards that seem like, wait a second, this card also seems like it breaks the game. I don't know how we're going to counter that. And then you'll try to do that for another couple games. And all along, you'll have cards that just seem useless that suddenly have a very clear reason for existing. Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how many different people I have played Innovation with this year, and it seems like I'm almost playing a different game with each one of them. They have different styles of playing this game. They have different combos that they like. Now, this game also has expansions with it, but you don't even need them. You could go an entire year of playing nothing but the base game like I have. I've logged a couple hundred plays of this year, and I'm still coming back for more. Well, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Holiday Gift Guide. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will have 4 more videos to go. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, well, actually, I don't even think you're going to listen to this message because you're just going to get one long podcast episode. I invite you all to choose the version that you prefer. Thank you so much for watching. ありがとうございました. Until next time, じゃあね.